Donald Trump gave his first big speech. In that speech, the part that kind of grabbed most people's attention was the fact that he says he is going to buy Greenland, which, for those who don't know, Greenland is massive. It is like the size of the United States, but very few people live there. But it has lots of minerals and lots of things to steal and extract. President-elect Donald Trump's calls to take control of Greenland, Canada, and the Panama Canal reflect his fascination with a 21st century version of an old idea that great powers should carve out spheres of influence and defend their economic and security interests by imposing their will on smaller neighbors. And, you know, that's a kind of a nice way of saying the good old American game plan of just stealing anything you want, taking whatever the hell it is you want. And of course, the U.S. has a long history of this. Now, the reason this shocks so many people, and we go, wait a second, you can't just take Greenland. Greenland's Greenland. It's not United States, and it's Greenland. You can't, what? The only reason we find it odd is because for many years now, the U.S. and the ruling elite in the U.S. have found it more beneficial to destroy countries from afar, put in the leaders that are your puppets, and pretend that they aren't part of the United States, even when your puppet is in there. That has been the ongoing plan of the United States for the past, 100 years or less than that. But of course, you go back not that far, and we would just steal Hawaii. We would often purchase large amounts of land, giving no care to the fact that indigenous already live there and that they have no say in the purchase, such as Alaska, the Louisiana purchase, of course, where, the U.S. purchases this huge swath of what became the United States from France, because France was losing the war in Haiti and needed money. Of course, there's no consideration to the fact ever that indigenous live there, and they don't even know about the deal. The French say they owned you, and now the Americans say they owned you. What? Of course, no concern for that. Then, of course, there's the theft of Texas and California from Mexico. So a combination of U.S. theft and purchasing and various other things, Puerto Rico, Philippines, the U.S. has a long history of this. But it is more rare recently for the U.S. to say, we're just going to take land. We're just going to take countries. And hilariously, this goes exactly opposite of what we've been told for years about Putin, right? It was Putin's going to steal this land. Putin is the new Hitler. Putin's going to steal all these things. Meanwhile, you have Trump going outright and giving speeches about stealing other countries. So who is it again that's the awful land thief? Is it the imperialist who is going to run around the world grabbing up whatever they want? Oh, it's not us. Oh, it's other countries. Because when other countries do something like this, we say we got to go to war with them. Does it mean we have to go to war with the U.S. president? Because that's looking like that. Trump said Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of the artificially drawn line. I got news for you, Mr. Donnie. They're all artificially drawn. All of the lines that humans put on the globe and go, you are 5 feet over there, so you're a piece of shit. I'm 5 feet over here, so I am a hero. All made up in our brain balls, all not actually there, all have no connection to reality other than what we give them. He says you get rid of the artificially drawn line and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Taking control of Greenland, Canada, and the Panama Canal through military or economic force would be a departure from decades of U.S. foreign policy as pursued by presidents of both parties. If Trump does even a portion of what he described, each of which is extremely unlikely, although the Greenland and Panama are far less unlikely. Can I say that? Far less unlikely than Canada, but still. It could mean far-reaching changes in America's global role, emboldening adversaries and forcing allies no longer assured of Washington's backing to seek new security and economic arrangements. From what I've heard about Greenland, which belongs to Denmark, is that if the United States decides to really put a lot of pressure, both economic pressure, and then, of course, there could be military pressure, but for the U.S. to attack Denmark would be that would be truly unhinged. Economic pressure on Denmark, and something like only 40,000 people live in Greenland. It's quite possible that the US could force Denmark into something like that, into giving away large swaths of Greenland or something like that. It's absolutely not impossible. And I also think we should be careful not to draw some massive line and like, Donald Trump is behaving in a way that U.S. presidents never behave. It's actually just that he says it outright, and that he says that we want to take Greenland, as opposed to what does the U.S. do when we want to steal resources from a country? Well, the plan for generations now has been you create a coup, right? We do it with assassinations. We do it economically. We do it with lawfare. One of our favorite ones is lawfare, and we've successfully put in lawfare coups in Brazil recently twice. We got Lula locked up. We got Dilma Rousseff kicked out. Lawfare coups in Pakistan, lawfare coups in Argentina. We put a far right winger there. I can't list them all, but lawfare has been the main angle for coupping countries recently. Now, once they're couped, the U.S. then makes sure that a favorable president gets in there who's willing to sell to us all of the stuff that we essentially want to steal, such as the oil. If the oil is nationalized, now we'll sell it to you. It looks a little different, right? No one says the U.S. owns Argentina now, but it looks a little different. But the end result is very similar, that the U.S. gets to extract resources from that country. Like for 1 year, we successfully couped Bolivia. Then that coup's been undone. But for 1 year, we couped Bolivia, and during that year, Bolivia signed a bunch of contracts to give us the lithium we wanted. So that's more how it works. What Trump's talking about is the more direct, I'm going to buy the place from you, which doesn't happen as much anymore because of the way it looks, because it often tends to result in other countries signing security agreements against you. It tends to result in you're more likely to push towards revolution. There's a reason that our ruling elite don't generally do what Trump's doing, but it's not exactly night and day like, Trump's stealing areas of the world, but other presidents have not. Really? Because, the U.S. owning a third of Syria and stealing their oil and just holding basically their oil fields, that didn't start under Trump. That started under Obama, went through Trump, went through Biden, still going. So is it really? Is it just Trump doing this? Let's see. This is from Chuck Hagel, who's a former Republican senator. He said, we just haven't seen anything like this, at least in my lifetime, from a president of the United States. This is very, very autocratic, and that is why it's so concerning what Trump is saying and how he's acting. When our strongest allies and partners lose confidence in us, no good is going to come from all that. China and Russia are looking at this and going, go ahead, Mr. Trump, keep talking. And I think there's some truth to that we are witnessing the kind of downfall of the U.S. empire. A waning empire vomits up sexist like Donald Trump, and we're witnessing that collapse of the empire. Now, they know, I think other countries probably know that it hastens your collapse if you begin doing things as outright as, stealing Greenland, stealing the Panama Canal. By the way, so, the quick history of the Panama Canal is we helped build it. We kind of owned it, and then we gave it back to Panama in we signed it in the 1970s saying it would be theirs by 1999. So Panama Canal now belongs to Panama. But the reason we were willing to sign that in the 1970s was because the U.S. feared the revolutionary forces in Panama and didn't want to have to deal with it. And so that's really why that, went in that direction. Trump's vow to annex Canada is bluster aimed at gaining leverage before trade negotiations with Ottawa. I think this is true, that it's not that Trump actually thinks he's going to make Canada the 51st state. It's that he wants Canada afraid so that when he starts forcing them on trade negotiations, they're willing to give more because they're like, well, at least he's not making us a goddamn state. His threat to take back the canal is a ploy to secure lower prices for U.S. ships sailing through Panama, and his fixation on acquiring Greenland is about gaining access to rare earth minerals and denying them to China. Also, his statements about these three places, Canada, Panama, and Greenland, show how weak the U.S. is right now. The reason Israel needs rare earth minerals is because we are losing to China economically. China has a lot of the rare earth minerals and makes a lot of the, chips and things that use those minerals. We're also losing economically in other ways in terms of imports, exports, and the Panama Canal is incredibly pivotal to global commerce. So we believe if we take over the Panama Canal, we can make it a choke point for China as opposed to a choke point for us. And, all of this actually reeks of desperation. It reeks of a waning empire that has to try and grab more and more to try and maintain hegemony. A decades-old treaty between Denmark and the U.S. gives the Pentagon access to an Arctic base in southern Greenland with an airfield as well as radar and other equipment for detecting possible missile launches. So the U.S. has a base in Greenland, which is another important point here, that the U.S., when we say we're going to steal areas of the world, well, we're kind of already, if you have a military base on an area, you kind of half own it. I mean, many of these countries like South Korea, people point to them and say they're kind of a U.S. colony. They got massive military bases there. The country does whatever we say. Apparently, Canadians, though, for some odd reason, do not want to be part of the U.S. A December Ledger poll showed 13% of Canadians wanted their country to become America's 51st state, with 82% opposed. I don't know why you would say that, Canada. We got everything going so well down here. Everything's running great. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of this awesome shit show? Huh? Why not? Both chambers of the U.S. Congress will also have to authorize it. Canada, the U.S. second largest trade partner, has long been a target of Trump's complaints about unfair economic relations, one he couples with criticism that Ottawa is a laggard in providing funding for NATO. Yeah, so this is how Trump treats his second largest, the U.S.'s second largest trade partner. We're just gonna take you over. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. It really is it just all reeks of such desperation, honestly. And the other thing is, isn't the right wing, aren't they all about, don't be a victim, right? It's just victim mentality. Isn't that the thing? Man, does Trump do a lot of complaining. A lot of whining. They don't give us enough money. We don't get enough things. There are too many of their immigrants are coming here. We don't know what to do. This is a king of victimhood, Donald Trump. I thought that was a right-wing thing, was to... Okay.